We want to go now to Joonathán Conricus, a spokesperson for the IDF. Joonathán, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am, and I can hear you loud and clear.
So we want to get your response to the news of this hospital in Gaza. Reportedly, some 200 to 300 people being killed there by an apparent missile strike. Hamas is saying that this was the Israeli Defense Force. What is your response?
The first response is that anything said by Hamas should be taken with extreme caution and skepticism, and I urge all journalists to be very careful when they report what Hamas says and when they base reporting on those events. What I can say is that we have analyzed various sources of intelligence and systems, and the information that we have, which has been confirmed by the highest levels in the IDF, is the following. We are aware of a barrage of rockets that was fired by terrorists from Gaza towards Israel, and that passed in close proximity to that hospital in Gaza at the time that it was hit. The intelligence that we have from multiple sources it indicates that the Islamic Jihad, another terrorist organization in Gaza, is responsible for a failed rocket launch that struck the hospital in Gaza.
So you're saying that there were two things happening here, a series of Hamas rockets that were passing by, but then also this is an Islamic Jihad failed rocket launch?
Yes, the bottom line is that according to our intelligence analysis and the various systems that we have of air control, etc., indicate that this was a failed launch, and not in general, but specifically by the Islamic Jihad.
And Joonathán, obviously there is going to be enormous scrutiny from around the world on exactly what led up to this missile strike on the hospital. And I just want to share with our viewers, we're looking at new video.
Misfired rocket strike, not a missile strike. We did not strike that hospital.
So a missile strike, pardon me, but I just want to share with our viewers that is new video we're getting of the strike. Nevertheless, hundreds of people were killed. There is going to be enormous scrutiny on who was behind this strike. Are you willing to share the intelligence, the actual raw data with the world that indicates what you're saying, that this was Islamic Jihad and not the IDF?
We're in the progress of declassifying. I cannot promise yet that we will, but maybe because of the importance and because of what is at stake here, that may happen. But the important fact that I can say now for the first time on CNN is that we did not strike that, and that the intelligence that we have suggests that it was a failed rocket launch by the Islamic Jihad. And I want to add categorically that we do not intentionally strike any sensitive facilities, and definitely not hospitals. We are very much aware of the presence of civilians, and we are all too aware of the cynical manipulation that Hamas seeks to do by using civilians exactly for these purposes. And we've seen that all over the many years of conflict we've had with Hamas, and more so during this war. They have no boundaries. They bomb their own civilians. They attack them. They use violence. And in this case, what happened is that they are trying to leverage this sad incident of a misfire of an Islamic Jihad rocket in order to leverage pressure on Israel.
Are you saying that with 100% certainty, you can say this was not an IDF missile strike?
As certain as anybody in war can be, with million pieces of information flying around, but after a very serious review, I can say that this is the information that we have now. We are confident, and the information that we have says that this was a failed launch by the Islamic Jihad.
Was the IDF operating? Were there IDF missile strikes in this area at the time?
There's continuous military operations by the IDF in various locations all across the Gaza Strip. And there's also continuous rocket fire. And the alarms sounded in Israel just about the time of the reported strike or the reported explosion at the hospital. I myself was on the way, and there were rockets coming in towards Tel Aviv and alarms going off in northern Israel.
I do just want to be very, very clear on this to get your level of certainty, Jonathan, because you're saying that there were IDF missile strikes all across the northern part of Gaza and sort of this area at the time, in particular near this hospital.
No, I didn't say that.
You said in the region.
No. Yeah, right. So let me please be clear. I want to
but
be clear.
Let me ask my question. Let me ask my question of you, Jonathan. Were there missile strikes in the vicinity of this hospital, within, blocks of this hospital, in the neighborhood of this hospital?
Not as far as I'm aware. Our investigation has been focused on first making sure that there was no intentional targeting. That has been established totally. And a further review of the intelligence systems that we have, radars and others, they indicate that this was a failed launch by the Islamic Jihad. That is the information that I have. I stand by it. It has been approved by the highest levels in the IDF, and that is the information that we stand by.
Jonathan, obviously there is going to be, as you noted, skepticism from around the world because of claims made by Hamas and other groups about the way that the IDF has conducted its business historically in Gaza. What do you say to those that don't believe what you're saying?
Listen, if it's believing the IDF or believing Hamas, I think it should be clear for anybody involved that they should believe the IDF. We don't claim to be perfect. We definitely make mistakes, but we always aspire to tell the truth and to be transparent. And when there have been mistakes, we have owned our mistakes and come out clear about it. This time, what I'm saying is that this, according to the information we have, was a failed rocket launch, not by Hamas, and I'm saying specifically the name of the organization because that indicates the level of intel that has gone into it. This was the Islamic Jihad that fired a long-range rocket towards a long-range target. It failed and exploded, and that is what happened at the hospital.
So you're saying they missed their target, essentially?
Yeah, listen, this has been going on in every conflict, and anybody who has been following our fighting with Hamas knows that in every time that there's rocket fire towards Israel, let's say they fire a few thousand rockets, there are hundreds of misfires. In this conflict alone, there has been more than 400 misfires in this conflict alone. And in the last conflict in May 21, we had the same amount, roughly the same amount of rockets fired and rockets that landed short inside the Gaza Strip. I remember clearly an event that was reported live on Fox by Trey Yingst, where he was standing inside Gaza. The reports that came out was of an Israeli strike, which is the knee-jerk response around the world. But then he reported that he saw with his own eyes a strike that landed, a rocket that misfired and landed in northern Gaza. I think it was Jabalia, and caused casualties, the death of a Palestinian family. So this is not unprecedented. It has happened many times in the past. It is documented. And for those willing to listen and not to automatically blame Israel for it, there is ample proof of the fact that this has happened many times before. Granted, not a hospital and not so many casualties, but the fact of the matter is that rockets misfire and land in Gaza, and they have been doing so for years.